All right, Supervisor Bailey, we're here with another town hall. This time we'll have community culture and consensus. So Supervisor Bailey, please go ahead and take over.
Thank you, Will. Well, welcome everybody to Community, Culture, and Consensus. This is going to be a dynamic and exciting afternoon because we're going to talk about some very in-depth and wonderful things for our county. I'm joined by all of my friends in the community, and we want to share with you our hearts, our minds, our souls, but offer some great solutions with our wonderful audience, representatives on the line, to just bring you in the conversation about our community, about the vast and diverse culture that we have and how we can bring about consensus. But we are very much fortunate in having Reverend Will Archer and his wonderful wife, Torcia, to come and help us with the moderation for this evening. Reverend Archer, welcome.
Thank you so much. Well, we're really honored to be with all of you. My name is Will Archer. I'm the pastor with Potomac Valley Church. And I'm really honored to be with this group as we talk about community culture and consensus. We're definitely at a time of incredible need and a truly transformative time in our country and a transformative time for this county. And I think conversations like this, Supervisor Bailey, are so critical for us to really move forward. And I'm really honored that we have leaders that are willing to step forward and really have real and meaningful conversations. So we're very, very honored to be here and to be a part of this conversation.
Yes, definitely. My name is Tasha Archer, and I'm married to this amazing man right here. We've been married for about 21 years, and we've been leading a church together for over that. We were leading together when we were singles and had no idea if this was the one or not. So we're grateful to be able to be in this community. We have been here for over 5 years. And for us, we kind of have been nomads. We've been going from place to place to place. So for us to be somewhere for 5 years, it's a huge deal. So this is our home. This is where we want to be. And we love our community.
Wonderful.
And we definitely see how important conversations like this are, and how impactful, each decision is on our individual lives. So we want to be a part of these conversations, and we want to be a part of, we want to be pulled in, like you say, Andrea. I'm so excited about that. And I'm grateful that we're also talking about culture and coming to a consensus together on every single one of these different avenues here. We have culture, and we have we want to build consensus with our police department, and we have community. And I am grateful that we get to talk about those three things. They're very important, especially at this time.
Absolutely. And we have a truly distinguished panel, and we're going to actually have them introduce themselves. But I do have to say, this is the community where we live. And so Supervisor Bailey is our supervisor. And so we're really grateful to be able to have a conversation where we live and also where we worship. And so I'm going to invite Bishop Grier to introduce himself, and then have our incredible Chair Wheeler, and then the Acting Chief of Police introduce himself as well. But Bishop Grier, if you can tell everyone a little bit about who you are. Most of us know who you are, but if you can kind of introduce yourself to everyone on YouTube and Facebook.
Sure.
And everyone that's watching us live will check us out later.
Sure, very good. Well, thank you, Pastor. I'm delighted to be with you. Supervisor Bailey, you are incredible. And it is a privilege to be with you. It's always an honor to have a conversation with you. And we're all going to learn a little bit tonight. And really what we're doing tonight is really trying to create a little community. And I'm excited about that. Thank you, Pastor Archer and Tasha, for inviting me as well. Grace Church has been in Prince William County since 1998. We started in the high school, Hilton High School, and we grew. This is our second building. Actually, we're starting to build our third building. And we have deep roots here. We love the community. And I think this is a topic that Grace Church is very, very, very interested in. So thanks for having me. And I'm excited to be here.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
And Chair Wheeler, can you introduce yourself to everyone?
Sure. My name is Ann Wheeler. I'm Chair of the Prince William County Board of Supervisors. Grateful to be here today. Thank you, Supervisor Bailey, for including me in this wonderful conversation. with all these distinguished guests, and always good to see Will and Tasha, really is being integral parts of our community moving forward, and I think that's what's important today. As chair of the board, I think we need this community conversation, and what I hope is that it doesn't just stop now, that it keeps on going. Yes. We tend to be, as Americans, just sort of focus on one thing and then the next shiny object. And I think conversations like this are just the beginning of ones that we need to have a lot of. So thank you, Supervisor Bailey. I'm excited to talk about community consensus and culture in Prince William County. I think it's important. I like to say the world is our oyster. What do we want to make Prince William County going forward over the next 3.5 years now? We've had half a year, so. And it's changed even in that half a year. So yes. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And and Acting Chief Phelps, we're so grateful that you could be with us. And if you can introduce yourself, and I know you've got quite a few exciting things going on with the police department as well.
Yes. Reverend Archer, thank you. Supervisor Bailey, thank you for inviting me to this. And Reverend Archer and Tasha, thank you for hosting. This is a great opportunity for us for our engagement. I'm Jared Phelps. I'm the Acting Chief of Police. I've been with the department for about almost 25 years now, and I've actually grew up in Prince William County, so I'm a lifelong county resident. I've been part of this community. I got deep roots as well.
Yeah.
I've actually been part of this department for longer than I've been, or almost as long as I've been alive, as I'm a second generation where my mother was a police officer here with Prince William County. Wow. So I'm very proud of this department and what we have accomplished and what we will continue to accomplish. One of the things that I try to tell all the officers as we come to understand our jobs is that everything we do is about the relationships that we build. Mm-hmm. We can't do police work without relationships, whether that's internal or external. We have to continue to build relationships. So this is an opportunity for us to continue to build those relationships. The department's got deep roots here, but we don't know everybody, and we need to know everybody. And getting out and talking and hearing problems and working together on those issues, whatever they may be, is something that we're committed to doing. It's part of our mission and will continue to be. So again, thank you for this opportunity, and I look forward to the conversations.
Outstanding.
Great.
Outstanding. And Supervisor Bailey, before we dive into some of the questions, any other thoughts that you have?
Well, I started the session, and I am Supervisor Bailey. I'm the supervisor for the Potomac District. Thank you so much, Reverend Archer. And it gives me great pleasure to say that every single one of you that's on the screen, you are my community, but most of all, you're my friends. Mm-hmm. And I think it starts there in terms of understanding people and understanding cultures when we talk about building a holistic community. And so you are the ones that certainly when I need guidance or when I need to dialogue about my district that I come to. Mm-hmm. And because I have a great relationship with you. And so I want the community to know that not only are you my friends, but you are their friends as well. And so I think that is, I'll pass the baton to you, Reverend Archer, to open the dialogue about what friendship and community and cultures can do to build the consensus.
Absolutely. And for everyone that's following us on YouTube and on Facebook, we're really grateful that you could join us in this conversation. We want to encourage you on those platforms. You can drop questions in the chat. We have a number of questions that we'll be working through, but if you do have questions, feel free to drop those to us and we'll be able to engage with you directly. And for those of you that are watching this live, we're really grateful that you could join us live. But for many of you, you may be watching this later. And we want to encourage you definitely to feel free to reach out to all of us respectively or individually to continue conversations with us because we really are a community.
Yeah.
Prince William County is the second largest jurisdiction in Virginia. It is the first majority minority county, and it is a county that's radically changing in amazing ways. And the first question I'd like to pose to this distinguished panel is, who is Prince William County now? Because we have a sense of what Prince William County may have been in the past, or maybe you have a positive or even a negative perspective of what Prince William County may have been in the past. But who's Prince William County now? And I think it would be only fitting if we ask our chair, just to begin to answer that question for us first. And I'd love for us to be able to dive in and share who's Prince William County now.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Reverend Archer. You know, Prince William County now is a wonderfully diverse place. I mean, that starts, you know, in terms of the different cultures we have, the number of immigrants. It's a wonderfully rich place, I think it is how I like to look at it, with a lot of people who are excited about being here and being in Prince William County. We have a lot of entrepreneurs in Prince William County. We have a lot of people who came here for a better way of life and have made it like yourselves and just stayed here, right? Mm-hmm. And called Prince William County home. And there are people who've been here for a long time. And you know, I've been here 20 years. I've seen a lot of change. And I think one of the great things about Prince William County is it's continuing to embrace change. And it always feels like we're right at the forefront of many different, as places go, of leading that change. And so I think of us as, and I've said this for a long time, is we can be an example of how to do things right in the kind of wonderful community that we have by celebrating our diversity, celebrating our culture, making sure all voices are heard. It's a great place to live. That's why I love, you know, serving it so much. So thank you.
Amen. There is a part 2 to that question. What does the community look like for leaders today?
You know, for me, I'll just say vocal. It's a vocal community. A lot of people, people who haven't necessarily had a voice are being heard. People who, you know, want to hear their voice here are very vocal and engaged. I think the fact that we've all been home for so many months now, people are actually more engaged in their local community. So I see an engaged local community with people paying attention, which is always a good thing. You know, a community input is always a good thing. So alive, I see us as being very alive.
Absolutely. Bishop Grier, what do you think about this?
Well, I've been in, and I appreciate what Chairman Ann has said. I've been in the county since the late 90s, and from about 2000 to 2010, it seemed that the county almost doubled. I think it's probably more like 40 to 45% or so, mm-hmm. But it was tremendous growth. And with that came a lot of changes in the different faces, the different complexions, the different languages, et cetera. And I have watched the county deal with that. And it's been a very interesting experience. I'll be frank with you. Early on, I didn't always feel warmly welcome as a person of color.
Yep.
However, as time went on, I do feel a lot more welcome in the county. Mm-hmm. But we are certainly a very, very diverse county, and that's a good thing. But I do think sometimes we spend, we need to talk about these things, but I think sometimes we talk a little bit too much about the changes of faces versus, you know, what is the substance of what a Prince William County person is all about. Like even with our politics, my hope is, I happen to be an independent. Mm-hmm. My hope is that we take the best practices from the Republican Party as well as from the Democratic Party, mm-hmm. and use them in our county to make it better. Mm-hmm. And of late, I've seen the shift where we moved from a Republican stronghold to a Democratic stronghold. And with that shift comes certain animosities, et cetera. And my hope is that we stay gentle and kind toward one another as, you know, there's this shift. And that, again, it's not one party versus the other party. It's about Prince William County. And we can look at both parties to again, extract the best practices. So I've watched this place change. Mm-hmm. And I'm so glad we have the leaders here today. Like I've had the privilege of spending some time with Chairman Wheeler. We've had some conversations as well as Supervisor Cadigan. I've never met the the acting police chief, but we're going to fix that in person in the future. Mm-hmm. But I think we do have great leaders here, and they're thinking people. And I also, from my conversation with both of these ladies, I do not see people that are necessarily committed to a party line as much as to better serving our community. And I'm excited about that. And that's the type of leader it's going to take, I think, to move the county forward.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with those sentiments. And what an amazing way that God's really moved in us having this conversation, because you've been able to be here since 1998 and been able to see the county change. You know, we've only been here for almost 6 years now, and in 6 years, the county's radically changed. Mm-hmm. I can't imagine the perspective. And Acting Chief, you grew up here, and so you've definitely seen the county change.
Yeah. And
you know, a big part of what's kind of brought us to these conversations are conversations around the relationship between communities and police. You know, the dynamic benefits to diversity, but also the real challenges that we have as we navigate, you know, what is really some pretty tumultuous waters here, you know, over the past 6 months. So Acting Chief, I just wanted to ask you if you could speak just to how you see this question and what your thoughts are around our community.
So I was listening to the two responses from Chair and from Dr. Grier, and it's amazing because I see this county as in transition. Mm-hmm. It's been in constant transition for many years now. As we've always had a sense of identity of who Prince William County is and kind of a direction, but it's constantly evolving. It doesn't go from we're on the same path for 5 or 10 years now. It's been, okay, we had this direction, maybe 6 months later, we have a new direction. So we are constantly evolving, and the county has grown exponentially. From in the 25 years that I've been here on the department, we've gone from like 300, just about almost 300,000 to almost 470,000 in that time frame, and that's a huge transition for people to kind of get used to. It's hard to work through those transitions because now you have that many more minds about what they want their community to be. And for me, I take politics all out of it. I don't go on either side of things, but it's about finding the balance. We've got to find the balance between what our communities want to kind of meet both sides, regardless of politics or anything. It's about the community. What's best for the community may not work on the Potomac District, may not work in Gainesville, may not work in Occoquan, but we've got to find a balance between all the different communities. Something that we can all agree upon, and that's a challenge. It's a significant challenge to try to come to that agreement when everybody has their own style and idea of what's best for the county. Dr. Grier, you're exactly right. As far as we've got to find a way to, work together in a comprehensive and cordial manner. Doesn't matter if it's a political entity or not. It's just every agency within county government. We've got to recognize the differences, and I think we've done a good job within Prince William County. We can do better, obviously, but we've got to recognize those differences and try to best serve the citizens. That's from the police department standpoint, and we that is our goal, is to work with our citizens. Police works a little different. We don't make a lot of people happy. Let's be honest. We enforce the laws, and how I see it is different from somebody else. But again, it's about finding that balance and what's right for the community and striking that right chord. And we may only strike it for 30 seconds, but we're going to try for those 30 seconds and kind of get through that. So for leaders, I think it's important that we identify the differences. We see it. We speak to our from the county government, we talk about those differences openly, and so that they're seeing it as well. So they're identifying and finding creative ways to find that balance so that we can wade those waters and stay in the shallow end and not capsize the boat, and everybody's trying to keep from drowning. So
yeah,
absolutely. And Supervisor Bailey, what are your thoughts around this issue as we're speaking in many ways to your constituents as well as to the whole community?
Well, I appreciate you asking, because it's all that everyone has said. But for me, it's very evolutionary for me. And I say that because I have literally, as a military spouse, been in and out of this community, particularly my district, since 1976. And I don't mind that dating me, because it speaks to me very evolutionary terms, meaning when I first came here as a young wife, inner city kid born, I thought, what is this place called Dumfries?
Right.
I've never heard, and it was very rural. It was not very, I'm a city girl. It was not very inviting to me. And it was not very accepting of me. The only portion that I felt good about was the fact that I was a military spouse. And so the acceptance came from that perspective. But I came back in 89, and I saw this huge sign called Potomac Mills, and I thought I had gone to heaven, because inner city, I love shopping.
Hey.
But that said to me also, that spoke to my family that we were expanding, that it was different, it was growing, and I began to see, as Bishop Grier was saying, I began to see a lot of different faces that look like mine, and a lot of different faces that not necessarily didn't look like mine, but faces from different parts of our world. And so it was very exciting at this place called Potomac Mills to see that. And I say that because that's a pinnacle part in our community. And then when we retired in the military and we moved from Fairfax City, which was then a lot like Prince William County, it was growing. It was talking about potentially having a metro. It was talking about, it was a lot of diversity. It was really exciting in Fairfax. And then my husband said, we're going to move to Prince William County. And I was like, what? Because I felt like that was the place I wanted to be. But when we moved to Prince William County, I saw the same things. And I saw the growth, and it was evolving to this place of energy, this place of change, this place of trying to find a balance, and so that's why we came here, to be a part of that growth. And so I agree with the chief that, it is, it's always moving, and we have to find what's a good fit for everyone. And we have to be committed to do that. And so now that's what I see Prince William County in, and it's changing, and people don't like change, but it's inevitable because nothing stays the same. So that word evolutionary for me is a very powerful word for leaders in the community, for us to take that mantle, be it uncomfortable, and just move forward with that, in that evolution. So that's kind of how I see it now.
And Pastor, may I inject?
Absolutely. Yeah,
I accidentally called Supervisor Bailey Miss Cadigan, but that I was thinking something and obviously it came out of my mouth. But what was great is Miss Cadigan happened to be a Republican. Miss Bailey, by the way, she's Miss Bailey. She's not just some party. So, but I'm just to make a point. She happens to be a Democrat. But what was awesome was, at least from my vantage point, I saw a handing off of a baton. I saw something of them working together. Now, I hope that's the testimony from, okay, all right, good. And that's what we have to do. And instead of, instead of fighting the change, let's embrace the change, let's go with the change, and let folks stand on our shoulders, and let's help just make it better for everybody in the county.
Yeah, absolutely. No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to speak to that. I know I don't want to. Thank you, Bishop, for saying that, because it was a handing off of the baton. It was an understanding of from one, how can I say, from one era to another era.
Yeah.
With a collective understanding that, here's what I've done, here's what I'm handing you. And it was handed off in such a very gracious, respectful, understanding way. And as leaders, that's one of the things that we've got to grasp.
That's right.
We've got to grasp that it doesn't belong to just one leader.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have to all be committed to do it that way, mm-hmm. and not look for the pat on the back, or not look for the staple of who was the best or who can do it better, because it's about all of us, and we have to take the blinders off and have a broader view. And that's what Ms. Cadigan and I had, Bishop. I just wanted to say that.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And I think that's so critical. You know, I appreciate how this conversation is kind of taking shape, because I know for us in our local context, in our congregation, our congregation is very diverse. We're very politically diverse, you know, generationally diverse. And so I've got bright red Republicans and bright blue Democrats, and we're all in one church together. Yeah. And just as we're all in one community together. Mm-hmm. And Chief, I just want to let you know how grateful I am that you're a part of this conversation. I was actually, my grandfather was in law enforcement, so I carry his name. So I was named after a cop, and who loved to barbecue. So, so that's a part of the reason why beforehand we're talking about barbecue. And you know, I appreciate that you're part of this conversation, but we'd be remiss if we missed the context of why we're having so many of these conversations. And I know that, you know, honestly, I really appreciate Supervisor Bailey having, this is now her 8th town hall that she's had. And so she's really been engaging these conversations in our local community. But we're going through a really difficult time in our country as we're really confronting racial injustice. We're confronting issues surrounding police brutality and the misunderstandings and the deadly, you know, misunderstandings and biases that can be involved with the whole issue of culture. And so we are a super diverse community. Just as this panel is a diverse panel, I would love for us just to dive a little bit deeper into this whole question around culture. And Tasha, do you want to take our next question with culture?
Oh, sure. Yeah, sure. What are the different cultures in our county, actually? Can you describe the diversity a little bit? Now, yeah, yes, go for it,
okay,
go for it.
Okay.
Go for it. Talk to us about culture.
I was wondering who would pipe up.
I'd be happy to start this.
Go right ahead.
Prince William County is, I mean, we out of 470,000 residents right now, we've got 25% that are foreign born, of all different cultures and backgrounds. It's amazing how that transition has happened. There's a lot of factors that go into why people come to Prince William County and how they've resided here. But bottom line is they're here, part of the community. And I can go from one house and be kind of like a household from Ethiopia to a household from Thailand to Ecuador to it's all runs the entire gamut as far as the various types of cultures that we have in Prince William County. We're almost close to, I think, almost 100 languages that are spoken in Prince William County.
Yes.
And that's a challenge. That's a challenge for any government to try and keep up and be able to communicate with the residents of Prince William County on a give and take situation, because obviously not everybody speaks language in the county or in the United States. It's different, different mentality. I happen to have had the opportunity to be overseas on a couple different occasions. So I've been exposed to different cultures. So, and we try to bring those experiences when we hire individuals. We look for people who have that they're going to bring value to the police department, but they bring value in their experiences in their backgrounds. And I talk to the recruits during every session, and I try to highlight that value that they bring, is that we hired you because of you, what you bring to the table. And I don't want you to stop being you. I think it's important that we're bringing that to build the relationships that we have with our citizens, because they want to see people like them in government, in the police department, in the fire department. They want to be able to look and be able to say, you know what, that person's like me. I understand. And we, as the police department, we lack in that. We really do. And we've been working hard at trying to change and increase our diversity within the police department. It's a low role because of other cultural hindrances, I would say, and views that people have of police department. That we're constantly combating that and trying to show, just because police in one culture is one way, that's not police here. And that goes in the United States as well. Just because you see things going on in other agencies and other jurisdictions and other states, that's not necessarily, I would challenge that it's going on here. Now, I'm not ignorant to the fact that it could happen here, and that maybe I'm just not informed of certain levels of things, but we're always on the lookout to make sure that we address those issues. We're very forthcoming with that information, and there's a lot of police reform conversations going on right now. And I actually spoke with a group. I've been doing community town halls just like this ever since the 31st. I've been on a traveling road show, and talking to them. It's about, we need to do a better job at educating the citizens of Prince William County about what it is and how we do our job. Everybody just thinks we show up, we lock people up, and we just take care of business. And that's not what we're about. We're more about building the relationships. Yes, we do have to enforce laws, but there's a process in place for everything that we do, and there's an audit process. So it's very hard to be a police officer, and we have body-worn cameras. We investigate almost every use of force gets investigated. Every complaint gets investigated thoroughly. We just don't do a very good job of communicating that to build that trust. And some of that is just the nature of our job, because we have to protect privacies. Again, we're trying to find that balance. But there's a way for us to continually to be a little more transparent, communicate a little bit more. And that's what we're trying to do, because these national conversations are bringing a lot out that we're very, law enforcement in general is it's not secretive. It's just more, we're protecting other people's rights. And we're very cautious about that, because we want to ensure everybody's constitutional right is protected. And whether you wanted the information doesn't mean that you get the information, because we have to protect somebody's rights. So we're constantly battling that. And it's just more of a conversation to let everybody know this is why. We got to explain the why sometimes.
And Chief, if I could just ask a follow-up, as we're talking about diversity, you mentioned that there's a real desire to have greater diversity. And
Absolutely.
Chief Bernard is a great friend to many of us, has done an incredible job. He's been at church with us. And we really honor his incredible leadership. And we know, as you're taking on the mantle here, leadership really does change things.
Yes, it does.
What could we do as a community, and what could we even do as panelists here to help with the greater diversity in our police department? Because I do think, you know, a lot of the comments that have been shared is our community has changed radically, demographically. There is a huge benefit to people that look like you, that can relate to your life experience, or at least have a better working context of your life experience from their own varied experiences. So what can we do to help you with regard to greater diversity in the police department? I've been out to the academy in Nokesville. It's a beautiful academy there through Leadership Prince William. And so I would love to know, kind of, as we're talking about diversity, how we might address that specifically for the police department. Okay.
Well, I'm put a little bit of plug here, because I have 2 board members on here. We need more space and buildings out at the academy. So more officers.
Got it.
But sorry, I gotta make a little levity right here.
That was good, Chief. That was good.
Ask. That's good with me.
What we need, where we need to help is the invites just like this. We need to have more conversations. We need to show that, get our officers more on the positive side of things. I mean, we get into communities, majority of our time is because we've been called there, and we're called there because somebody's in crisis, whether it's mental, whether it's physical, whether it's financial. The person's in is dealing with some type of crisis in their life. And officers, they spend, I like anecdotally, I like to say they spend 90% of their time with 10% of the population. And that 10% of the populations are those that are in crisis. So it's a lot of negative interactions. It really is. It's a lot of negativity that weighs on an officer because they don't get an opportunity to always see positive. Yes, there are the ones and twos and events that they get to, but the overwhelming majority of their work is negative in nature. And right now, what's going on, you open up social media, you turn on the news, it's negative, it's negative. They come to work, they're dealing with negative. So they need to be reinforced with positive. That would help, number one, by getting us into places like this. Let's be honest, most people don't want to hear from me. They know what I'm going to say. They know that I'm about promoting the department, but they don't want to hear the real deal. They want to hear from the officers. And I talk to the officers about that. Don't be afraid to have those conversations. We have a tendency of being standoffish sometimes, and we need to break down those barriers and build those relationships. But we got to have those conversations, and getting us into there so that we can build those relationships helps. I'll be honest with you, in talking with internally with a lot of my officers, I've been kind of going around just making sure we're doing it right on the inside, because if we can't do it right on the inside, we're not going to do it right on the outside. So I've been kind of exploring with officers on how they felt, especially our officers of diversity, of color, and what their interactions have been internally and externally. And what struck me, and again, I've never been in these shoes, is our Black officers, they tell me how they get ridiculed by other Black family members, friends, because they get deemed a traitor or whatever else. And that's a hard stereotype to fight through. So we've got to show that there's more to being a police officer, and it's that community involvement. I've been trying to brainstorm with them, and they've given me some great ideas. But it comes down to, we got to get out to the community, build those relationships stronger, and we can only do it one at a time. It takes one individual. We've got to be able to try to change hearts, and that's the hardest thing to do. It's not about changing somebody's mind; it's about changing their heart and how they interact with somebody. And that I think that it's got to be our mission to be able to do that, and we need your help to be able to do that by helping us bring them together.
Absolutely, and that's totally the conversations I've been having with everyone in law enforcement that's in our congregation. You know, one of the key leaders in our media team is a retired police officer, and he comes from a family of police officers, and that's definitely been a part of the real challenge that they've had in their conversations. We have some amazing leaders on this call, and I want to shift our conversation now to talking about consensus building. And Bishop Grier, you're fantastic at building consensus and energy behind issues. And I would love to ask you if you can lead us off in this next question. How do we build consensus among leaders within our community?
I think a big part of it is answering questions like we're trying to do here. I'd even say that there are a few formats where we really get an opportunity to ask each other questions. So this is what's great about this format, and I salute you guys for putting this together. But one of the big questions that my congregation members have asked me was, you know, they knew about this phone call, was what were the lessons learned from, I believe it's May 30th, when they had that march and things went a little left. And I'm not, again, condoning the bad behavior of people, but what have we learned, whether as supervisors, as chief of police? I mean, what are we taking away? Because we wasted, you know, the experience if we've not learned something from it. So what are the concrete things that we really got out of that? And I think if, you know, we have a sense of what was learned, everyone can get behind what was learned, and we could build a consensus around those items learned. So I hope I wasn't out of line to kind of ask a question in the middle.
I think that's how you build consensus.
Okay.
You ask questions. And that's exactly what you do. Like that's how we
that's what he does.
Is we have conversation.
Yeah.
So and I would ask. Yes, please.
Yeah.
I want to, you know, he does. He's excellent at that. And I want to say this. What we learned from that meeting and Lieutenant Jarrett, this is what I call him all the time. Lieutenant Jarrett, you were awesome in your orchestration of that meeting and your heart. Your heart, what he did is he played his heart. He knew that he was in a situation where he needed the support of the community. Mm-hmm. And he didn't stop. He engaged the community leaders, and he brought us together in a collected room, he and the chief, and we talked about, he told us what the dynamics of the night of the riot was. He explained it explicitly. And then he asked us for our input, for our help. What were we thinking? What can he do for the continual protests that were about to come about? What are the kind of things that they may need to change? And out of that meeting, that was on a Sunday, the next day, he implemented those changes, some of those changes.
Outstanding.
And so that is, but I will tell you, in doing so, if Prince William County was not the kind of county that we are, that would not have happened, because there was an element of fear in doing that, both from the community and I'm sure from the police department. But that's what it takes to make it work, to make our cultures work, to build that trust. And so that element of fear, and one of the things when I worked in corporate America, we used to say, feel the fear and do it anyway, because our community was at stake. Mm-hmm. And so the chief had the nerve, the courage, the bravery to say, hey, I know I wear the badge and I know I carry the gun, but I'm depending on you to help me to understand this.
Right.
And so if we have respect for authority, we have respect for our police department, we have respect for the stakeholders and the leaders in this community, then we have to have that innate trust that that can happen. Now, Bishop, that's a part of that change that we've got to learn how to do. That's that fallow land that we've got to break down, that we've got to trust and not be afraid to do that, because there is an element of fear in Prince William County that's stopping us from moving forward. There is. Because when you talk about, and I just want to say this, just backing up a little bit to the cultures. When you talk about the cultures in Prince William County, yes, there's diversity, there's different nationalities. There are different people here, but there is a culture that is innate here, that's been inbred here, that's been sustained here. Those are the ones that were here before us, for example, like the elder stakeholders, mm-hmm. who has a belief about Prince William County that how it used to be, and this change thing ain't so great. They don't want it, you know? There's an element that says, why do we have to do this? Prince William County has never done this. Well, that's when you bring us together as leaders and you bring them together and you say, here's why we have to do this. Right. And you build that trust. There's octogenarians here. Can you imagine people that are in their late 80s that remember when, that we can learn from as leaders, mm-hmm. the history of what's going on, like the chief's parents that's been here, you know, so we've got to bridge that gap and, you know, and really understand, extend that olive branch and not have that element of fear to do that. And then you got the millennials. Sorry, Will. You got the millennials who are here and they want to be here, but they bring a robust power with them that the chief has to deal with because they're energized and they have no element of fear. But there's an order to what we want to create along with that pulse. And I know that's a lot of words, but when you talk about the culture, it's not just about the skin color. It's about the thought process. It's about the lifestyle. It's about the understanding of traditional history, which Prince William County has, to make sure that when we bring leaders together, that there's a trust in that room continually that will build a better community.
Absolutely. And, you know, to that point, I would put that question as well to Chair Wheeler. Yeah. Chair Wheeler, I know this issue of consensus is huge, mm-hmm. and we've heard so many kind of intimations towards it as we kind of move past, you know, the events of the past several months that have been transformative for our country, but have also been very transformative for Prince William County in terms of our political dynamics, our generational dynamics. How do we build consensus, and how do you as a leader plan to help to really foster and lead change?
You know, so some of consensus and change comes about tone. And, you know, and I said, I went in front of the board a couple of years ago and I said, you know, leadership sets the tone. And so for me, I have always tried to take a higher tone in terms of, you know, trying to get consensus around things. But the fact of the matter is that, you know, people resist change. They all, you know, especially the older we get, I find I resist change. And so there's a natural friction, you know, and so when I wake up, I say, you know, sometimes I make decisions and I know people aren't going to necessarily all be happy, but I say, is this the next right thing to do? Right. And I say, yes, I believe this is the next right thing to do. And that's how I sort of get through. How do we get people on board? You know, I think, you know, Bishop Grier talked about what did we learn, you know, that from the May 30th evening and then going the difference to May 31st. I think we learned that we have problems in the county, right? And I've often said that if you don't recognize that you have a problem, you cannot change it, right? And recognizing, and I think what we learned on that Saturday night is that there were some people who were really upset, you know, and they were finally heard, you know, and that night was separating ourselves from community. You know, there was a line and it was separate, you know, those two groups were separate. The next evening, you know, on Sunday night, I was with, you know, Colonel Phelps, and we were surrounded and they were in the middle of the process. They were with the community. And so you either are fighting the community or you're in with the community, you know, and I think really what's come since that night is they've been in the community. And that has led to much better outcomes as opposed to, you know, being on opposite sides. You know, consensus building is hard. I plan to try to lead with a positive tone. You know, people tell me I can find something good in everything. And so I'm often somewhat cheerful about everything, even the county and our hope for the future, but that's the tone I'm going to take. But I still recognize that we have issues that we have to deal with. And I think that's what we've learned. You know, and they're not simple issues to get past, you know, whether it's not having a diverse workforce or, you know, a systematic racism throughout certain areas of the county, and how do we deal with those? And I would say begin by acknowledging them and saying they exist and it needs to be changed. And I'm willing to say that. I'm old enough to say, I don't care. I'm old enough to say, you know, I'm okay to acknowledge that. And that's where we're going to begin. And, you know, if everybody's on board with change going forward, it's going to be great. And if people aren't on board, it's going to be different. And that's okay. You know, we're trying to do what's best for the county as a whole, as how it exists in today's makeup, culture, diversity. And that's sort of what came about, you know, 6 months ago. And I don't think that's a bad thing. You know, I'm looking forward to working together and from the inside out and bringing us all forward and trying to do that with a positive tone. Always trying to do it with a positive tone, but I'm human. So, you know, there's always contentious, you know, and if I fail, you know, I ask for forgiveness. But I will always try to take the positive tone for Prince William County as we address some of the issues and make the best of what we have to offer here. And I'm excited for that future. I really am. You know, even, you know, the police department has done an awesome job, you know, going into the community. You know, and Colonel Phelps has been out there all the time. And I got to say, it's got to be hard dealing with negativity all day long. And that's just, as a county, that's one of the reasons we put the resiliency center in place, you know, for police and fire, right? And funded that. We recognized a need. They had a pilot program for ride-alongs with community service board workers who would deal with mental health problems. And over the last budget, we funded, you know, 4 CSB workers and 3 police to broaden that program, because with the acknowledgement that we have mental health issues out there that the police are not necessarily trained to deal with.
Yeah.
So, but these are the positive changes that we've done just in 6 months. And so
Yeah.
I'm excited about that, that we can see the need and be on, I like to say the cutting edge. I know that sounds trite, but on the cutting edge and best practices of how to address our community from a policing standpoint and a mental health standpoint, because they sort of go together, and it's got to be a really difficult job. And I respect them so much for what they do going out in the community every day. I really do.
Absolutely.
Also, back to the point of consensus, if the goal of the county is to be diverse, I'm not on board. I want this county to be excellent. And part of being excellent is being diverse. But we don't have to be diverse and give up our excellence.
Right.
And a lot of people, when you start thinking about and talking about diversity, they're saying, well, we're going to let folks that aren't qualified in to do X, Y, and Z. That's not at all what we're talking about. If we want to really build a consensus, we need to have shared values. And we have said we want an excellent school system.
Yeah.
We want crime off our streets. We want our kids to have options and things to do, et cetera, et cetera. We have to share values. And if we could share values, even though the methods, are debatable, but I don't care who you are, even if your methods are different, if we share the same values, we're going to be able to get past probably the different methods. So I think it's superficial to make it a goal. Hey, we're going to be diverse. I think we need to say we're going to be excellent. And again, diversity is part of being excellent. And I think that would help.
Absolutely. And to that point, as we talk about consensus, how can we go about really building that kind of deep consensus that and I appreciate what you're saying, Bishop Grier, with the police here in Prince William County. I know there are many issues and concerns around policing and the relationship with the community. How would you see us going about really building consensus with the police? And Chief Phelps, I wanted to start with you. Tell us what can we do to help really build consensus with you? And then I'd love for us all to take on that question.
So our community outreach has been ever since as far back as Chief Dean. We've always done significant amount of community outreach, and we've enjoyed a 90% citizen satisfaction rate for 25 plus years right now, which is amazing because that's unheard of in police work. When you look across the nation, you're lucky if you get departments that hit 50% mark. But for us to hit that 90%, it goes back to our outreach. And while we have been continuing our efforts with that, it's clear the county has grown so much and has changed so much that we're missing a group. We're missing groups, I should say, in communities. So getting that consensus, getting into those communities is important, and finding where those hubs are, those safe places to have those conversations is, and places of worship are a prime example for that, so that we can, talk and, they see the leaders with us and have this assimilation of good conversation, positive interaction, so that we can, build out from there.
Yeah.
I think that's where it kind of starts with. I mean, we've got a lot of places of worship that were just an example, but they're a great place to start, to go from there so that we can expand into other areas, places of business or wherever else, because people are safe. People feel safe in places of worship. They're supposed to be safe spots. They're supposed to be inviting, so that people let their guard down. Unfortunately, we've seen acts across the nation where those people have taken advantage of those safe spots. So, and we tried to work with them and to make those safe, but it's making them and bringing them into us sometimes. Whoever is willing to come and hear our crime prevention to make places safe. So it's about the consensus has to start there. We got to have those conversations and just get to know each other. I mean, I hate to go back to the relationship building, but it really is about that. This job and this community is about relationships. Nothing works without a relationship. Otherwise, you just have two parties staring at each other. And that doesn't get us anywhere. So we've got to, for a department, it's what we're focused on doing, and educating. As part of those conversations, we have to educate. We have to educate why we do certain things. Be willing to talk about those things. Educating about our policies, how we, what our use of force model is like, how we investigate uses of force, who reviews them. I mean, I do every single use of force. The chiefs before me have reviewed every single use of force to make sure it's done by policy. It goes through so many different reviews and is under such scrutiny. And we're still continuing, as big as we are. We're over 700 officers now, 700 positions. That's a lot. That's a lot of information to kind of go through. And not everybody's using force, but it's and it's just a lot of information. Any complaint that comes in, it's thoroughly investigated, and we just have to educate everybody on our policies, how we conduct business, and what we're about, to kind of build that so they have an understanding, and then for them to be able to actually see it and validate what we're saying, so that they're hearing what we have to say and believing what we have to say at the same time. I think Ms. Bailey's having some issues with her lights. I think we forgot to pay the power for her.
More funding.
Yes.
So, but no, to that, I think that makes a lot of sense, what you're saying. And if I can ask, even as we talk about building consensus with the police department, if I can also ask this panel, if you can also share some final thoughts that you'd like to really share with the community, or even share with us here on the panel. And Chief, thank you so much just for what you shared. If I can ask our Chair Wheeler, what are your thoughts about building consensus with the police, and also some final thoughts you really want to leave us with?
Well, I think we're in the midst of change, and change is hard, but it's not necessarily bad. I think that we need to keep on focusing on the fact that we need to change and make changes and sort of get to the end of the tunnel. We're sort of in the hallway, I guess I would say. And so, it's always, I like concrete actions. And so for me, it's, what kind of concrete actions that people can suggest to feel like the police are more part of their community. And what do the police need? What are concrete things that they need to do their jobs better? And because I'm very task oriented, you give me a task, you need something, I'll get it for you. Right. And so I'd love to, hear from the people about what are the things that they can suggest just as tasks for us to do as elected officials, to bring the police more into the community, and what other resources do the police need that we're not giving them. Maybe it's another position that does, employment in schools or something that focuses on that, and with the resources to do that, because we have those resources to be able to solve this problem. It's just a matter of finding the right way to go about and do it, and increasing the diversity in the police force and getting them into the community. I really believe, they're already out in the community, they have been for years, and how do we find those community leaders in the pockets that they're not, we all know a community leader that they probably haven't talked to. I'm sitting here thinking, and and coming forth with those community leaders and making sure they get out in those places. But I don't think any of this is bad. I think that I'm glad that change is happening and that we're recognizing that we need to change. I think that's good. So.
Yeah. Absolutely. And Supervisor Bailey, we're so grateful that you would invite us into this space to be able to have this conversation specifically with your constituents, but also with everyone that's joining us on YouTube and Facebook, for us to be able to have a conversation like this. What do you think around us really building consensus with the police, and what are some final thoughts you really want to leave us with?
Well, if you will allow, I'll give Bishop an opportunity to go before me, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
And I'll close out.
Sure, very good.
Absolutely.
I'm a guy that's probably more interested in progress than notions of change. So change is good sometimes, but if we're just swapping out, one color for another color and it's the same old thing, it's a problem. I think for the police force, just the little that we've discussed to hear, I didn't know this, to have a 96% satisfaction rate is absolutely amazing. And the issue to me is really now about making the police force more excellent by becoming more diverse. And I think, again, I know I keep coming back to this point, but again, in people's head, we say words, but people hear different things.
Right.
When we start thinking in terms of diversity, we start thinking, well, you know, we'll get some folks in that aren't qualified. That's not what we're talking about. We need to train our police officers, do everything it takes to train them well so that there's not one deficient officer on the police force. And we will become a more excellent community. So the goal, you know, if it's just change, I mean, that could be a problem. We want to get better. So as far as from my lens, as long as we are moving toward excellence, we're moving toward getting better, I'm okay with change. But if the change is moving us backwards, I am concerned. So I don't know how well I said that, but my hope is that folks in the community will have a vision for the community where it's not just about, well, we're going to get different faces in different places. We're going to be an excellent community. We're going to have excellent people. And if the community's fair, it's going to reflect the community because, you know, we have talented people of every race, every ethnicity, different religions, et cetera. So if this place is fair, you're going to see a relatively a diverse police force. So those are my closing thoughts. And I just hope that our county pushes towards excellence, pushes toward progress, pushes toward better versus just, you know, fill in the quota, if you will. And that's my heart on the issue.
That makes perfect sense. And to that point, Chief, I'll give you another stab at that just because as we're speaking specifically about this, I know you'd
it would
like
be
to
great to just know your heart and your conviction about that.
So you're exactly right, Bishop Grier. Excellence is what we strive for. We're always about, this department has always been about doing the right thing the right way in the best manner possible. Whatever that is, that's what I try to talk to the officers about. When I was in charge of training, I've been involved in training for over 20 years. It has always been to that goal is we want the best and we don't want to lower standards. We want to bring them up as high as we can go and let people reach the bar as opposed to lowering the bar for them to, you know, kind of glide under. And I'm not about that. I'm not about lowering standards. This department has never been about lowering standards. It's about raising things up to a level that continues to improve and make it better than it was when I got it, or better when the other chiefs got it. We always want to move in that forward progress. So my final question, and that kind of ties into my last aspect, is that when we talk about training the officers, we talk to them about accountability. We take an oath about accountability. We take an oath for about holding ourselves and others accountable for our actions. And all the focus has been on officers. It's about we holding officers accountable, but the job of holding people accountable, period, for behaviors, and that's kind of our job. So it's kind of a two-way street, is the way I see it. Yes, police officers, we're accountable for our actions. We should be, absolutely, but as a society, we need better. We need better from just a small group of individuals. Not everybody's a criminal. Trust me, I'm not trying to say that. But it's about holding each other accountable for that improvement, so that we are moving forward as a society together. And with that, everything else comes with it. It's not just this one group. It's everything's we got to hold each other accountable for improvement, constant improvement. So to kind of tag on what Dr. Grier or Bishop Grier was talking about, we got to hold each other accountable for things as well and question why we're doing it. And if something's going wrong, we can't be afraid to raise our hand and call the right people in and say, nope, this is wrong. We need to fix this. Let's figure out how we fix it so that we can move forward. So the accountability is a two-way street amongst everybody as we move society forward.
Yeah, that's so critical. That is so critical to have accountability and that sense of extreme ownership.
Absolutely. That's a great book, by the way, if you've read it.
I got that from a friend of mine, actually, who's a cop. That's what I'm working through. It's on my right in front of me, actually. So
that book hits hard for me, and that's what I am all about, is the extreme ownership. And I think the board actually saw that the day I spoke up at the special meeting on Sunday. That's what it's all about. It's about owning everything that goes wrong for me. And if it's great, it's not because of me. It's because of the great staff and the officers that I have. They do the great work. But if something goes wrong, it's because I didn't do something right. Well, I guess I didn't pay my bill.
Hey, but you owned it. But you owned it. So that's key. No, that's principle number one is extreme ownership. Tasha, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts about this?
No, I'm actually really grateful to hear about your conviction about this, Chief, just with accountability that's needed. I am of the mind that nothing good happens without accountability. Nothing. So I'm perfectly willing to hold everybody accountable and to be held accountable myself at the same time. So I thank you for having that conviction. It's also equally important for the police officers to hold each other accountable. I needed to hear that today. So I appreciate that. But also I want to tell you, I'm grateful to have this conversation today. This is like, it's been informative. It's been good. We've gotten a chance to hear each other's hearts and gotten a chance to hear what's actually happening that we don't know about, so thank you for that. We're definitely going to let Supervisor Bailey close us out though, because I know she has some stuff she wants to say, and we got to make sure she can do this. But if you could share a little bit first, and then then Supervisor Bailey.
Yeah, we're grateful to be a part of the conversation. Yes. And I'm really honored that we get to be here, Tasha and I both, with Bishop Grier, because I think faith is so critical to the integrity of our community and to us having the right values moving forward. I think leadership is critical. And so we're so grateful for Chair Wheeler and for Supervisor Bailey being here. I think we need our elected officials to be engaged as they are. And also informed in terms of our perspective. And Chief, I'm really honored that you share all the things that you shared. My offer for meat really does stand.
Yeah,
that's a real thing. And I think it's so important that we build these bonds. This is my community. I've got a 17-year-old and a 12-year-old. And so there's no turning back on us being a community that has the values that we espouse tonight. And I'm grateful that we could have this conversation. I'm so inspired, Supervisor Bailey, for your willingness to engage in this conversation in this way with your constituents, and making it a live conversation for everyone on Facebook and also on YouTube. And so thank you for having us. Thank you for inviting us into the Potomac District Town Hall. And we're definitely looking forward to, as Tasha said, the way that you really land this plane in this conversation with us tonight.
Well, buckle your seatbelts. We're about to land, and I want to thank you all. I started this off by saying that you are all my friends, and I truly feel like that about all of you. We are going to make this a better place. I so agree with what Bishop has said about doing it with excellence. I mean, I'm an only child, so whenever something goes wrong in the house as a little girl, it was me. I had to be accountable for it. And so that has been instilled in me, my whole life. Don't have step, do it all the way, with a quality that when God comes, you can be proud. He'll be proud of you. And that's just how I believe that we are. I so enjoy working in the vineyard with my friend Ann Wheeler, because she is very focused on being very intentional about the things that she says and the things that she does. And that builds trust and respect amongst us. And that's so important. The chief is very sincere about the way that he does things, and he's very forthright, and he is fearless, not just because he wears the suit, but that's just his character. That's his character. And we have to take the time. Like one day we were talking, and I said, Chief, can I pray with you? He said, sure. So this man is busy, so I had to pray right then. I didn't have time to call him, get with his secretary, say, can I cut? No, do it then. do it then, you know. And so we live in a great place, and we have to invest in that and be accountable even when we are in error.
Yeah.
We have to own up to it and get on with it. As Ann said, forgive me for that. Ask for forgiveness and move on. And move on, you know. And the quality, as Bishop was saying, he just said, the quality of our county will be there if we are authentic in our actions. Now, I'm going to close out by saying this. Bishop and I were on a panel about a week ago, wasn't it, Bishop, with Congressman?
Yeah, 2 weeks, yeah.
Yeah, and we were talking about race relations. We began talking about that. And the congressman asked us, what actions do you need to take? Well, see, oftentimes we say a lot of words, say a lot of pretty words, and we don't take action. And so my action from this call will be a continual dialogue so that we can create the template of what it's going to cost for us to move forward and how we're going to move forward, because that is so essential in making this place a greater place to live for our children and our grandchildren. And so with all of that said and done, I am very grateful to all of you for your entrusting me with this dialogue. I am very grateful to our audience that they thought it not robbery that they can get on live and hear us and begin the dialogue. I want to say that you're welcome back to this platform and to my office at any given time. And thank you so much for your leadership and all that you do at Potomac Valley and at Grace Church and within the county and in law enforcement, because it does, in fact, take all of that to make Prince William County a place of excellence in which we live. So thank you and have a good evening.
Thanks so much.
Thank
God bless you all.
God bless.
Thank you,
So good to
guys.
be with you.